Welcome to the Torque and Horsepower Podcast. I'm your co-host, Eric Herbert.
And I'm your co-host, Alex Dursa. Today we have a guest with us, Quinton from Iron King.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks for coming, Quinton.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a truck down here for you.
A little bit of a trip.
Yeah.
8-hour drive.
Yeah.
One way.
One way. It's a good thing you had some shit to buy.
Well, no, it's shit to sell.
Yeah.
So you don't even know it yet.
Yeah. As soon as Austin saw you coming down the road, he's like, fucking Quinton's dropping a pickup off here.
Yeah. And all that's going through my head is I'm like, he's going to buy this. Somehow I'm going to get money from this poor sap over here. And I'm going to drive off with more than I had.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's going to be smiling the whole time.
I have a big wheel dozer that's Quinton's at my shop that got dropped off because there's road construction, so I couldn't go to his shop, and it's just fucking yard sailed in front of my shop. The county's even stopped by twice for me to clean it up.
No.
Yeah. And so the other day SRT pulls in with a 9-axle. I was sitting in my yard or in my office, and the driver's like, hey, are you expecting like a 988? And I was like, God damn it. I was like, fucking Quinton, dude, is bringing some other piece of shit. And I looked at the driver. I was like, does it run? And he's like, yeah. And Austin looks at me. He's like,
must not be mine.
Yeah. He's like, must not be Quinton's then. And I was like, where'd it come from? And the driver's like, oh, I picked it up in Empire. And Empire, Nevada. Yeah. So he's like, oh, I picked it up in Empire. And I was like, that's weird. Well, I bid a job like a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago to replace an engine in a 988. Never heard back, and I was like, "Oh, I guess we didn't get it."
Oh,
and
that
the dude,
was it.
Yeah, the dude just fucking dropped it off. It was a 988H. It's a pretty nice unit, really. But the first thing came to mind, I was like, "Quinton dropped some fucking piece of shit off in my yard."
I try it for it not to be my MO, but somehow it just rolls into that. It's always, I can't pass up a good deal. Someone's going to give me a tractor. I'm going to take the tractor.
The worst part is, what does that Tiger weigh? They're not small tractors.
Oh, yeah.
That Tiger's probably, what, 120,000
Well,
pounds?
the thing is, I got to find a place to put it. And I know that Alex will just let me store anything I want there.
Yeah.
It's great. Just drop anything off.
And then we have to remove it somehow.
Yeah, that's his problem, though.
Yeah.
I just take the sweet meat. I take the motor, take the transmission, take everything that's worth money.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, hey, that scrap's worth money too, Alex. It's, you'll make money.
Yeah, we did it on the 990. I have I don't know, maybe 100 hours into it. I turned all the scrap in and I got $2,600. I was like, we're going to need some trades, bud.
Ouch.
Yeah. Tara was like, why are you, what, we need to get a check from Quinton? And I was like, I don't know. We worked out like a scrap deal. And she's like, how much you getting scrap? And so I looked, I was like, oh, fuck. I was like, we got like $2,600. She's like, I'm going to send him an invoice. I was like, send him an invoice.
I love it when Tara sends me invoices too. I print them off and I'm like, not paying that one, not paying that one.
Quinton's just searching Marketplace for shit to drop off my yard instead.
If I can buy this for 100, I know he'll buy it for 1,000.
That's right.
Let's just keep rolling the money.
That's right.
So where'd you grow up? Where are you from? What do you do?
Okay, so I'm from Central Oregon, born and raised. So Bend, Prineville, Redmond, it's like one big, smallish town like put together. And grew up there with my dad. He moved there in 92. I was born in 96. Been there my whole life. And he started what was called Diesel Power. So Diesel Power is... Well, let me back up a little bit farther. I'll back up a little bit farther. So he started working at the cat dealer, which was Pape, and was the parts guy, shipping, worked on equipment, and that revolved into him forming Diesel Power, which is a heavy equipment, components, parts, salvage. So he'd buy tractors, buy logging equipment, because that's the big thing back in the day. Tear it down, like he'd buy a 518 skidder, bring it to his shop, tear it down, and then resell the parts, and it just kind of skyrocketed from there. So we've been around since basically 92, before I was born, and then I took it over in 2014.
Okay.
So it's now Iron King, which we kind of had to do a restructuring after 08. We got hit pretty hard back then, and then it formed into Iron King after that, and everything's just been kind of taken off from there.
Wow. So parts, new, used, and repair.
Yeah, we rebuild a lot of our components. We have our, so I know that you do like badass engines, race engines, stuff like that. We do factory rebuilds. So we'll take in like a 3408, 3412 power shift transmissions, rebuild them back to spec. We have our own dyno shop, our own cylinder shop, and just resell the parts to customers like this guy.
Like me. Yeah. Which a lot of like the older cat stuff, especially after COVID, they completely stopped just like building anything from like 2005 and older. Where this guy, he buys all this old equipment, tears it apart, rebuilds the parts, and then you can still get a good component from someone like that.
I don't remember so where I was trying when I was driving here. I was trying to think of when did me and Alec really? It was definitely Toby. Toby got us in touch somehow, and then it just took off right from there.
I think it was for probably our first Cinderlight rebuild on a 980. I was looking for parts, and he had already bought stuff from you, and he's like, "Oh, I'll hit this guy up." So I think that's where it came from originally, was Toby.
And I really think that because we do a ton of business together. Right. We're daily callers, call back and forth, sell parts. He's calling me for service stuff, and I'm calling him for helping me fix my junk.
Piles of shit.
Yeah, I'm here to take him for everything he's got, and not really, but us being close to the same age, I think really. Because in this business, there's a lot of old blood. There's a lot of
for
people.
Sure.
If you've been tearing down tractors, you've been doing it since 1975, right? You've had this yard forever, and it built this huge inventory. And there's a lot of old blood in this scene, and not a lot of new people coming in. And I'm one of the younger generations coming in, taking over, taking the sword and kind of building up from there. And I feel like with me and Al here, we formed this relationship of we're the same age, we have the same interests. And we work on some of the old equipment, and we kind of both understand how to make money. We're in this together. It's not me versus you. And I think that's how this whole thing really started with Nevada in general too.
Yeah, and Nevada. Yeah. So definitely in the last few years have done a ton of shit in Nevada.
Yep.
You and me.
Yeah.
Because you have a big shop in Crescent Valley. It used to be, what was it before? It was a process mill, right?
Yeah, New Gold, Nevada.
Yeah, it was a big process mill. And it had a bunch of holes in the building. You could fly a fucking Cessna through one of the holes in the building.
Yeah, I think didn't you come out there
the day that I
bought that place, or I was looking at to buy it? You're like, let's go check this thing out.
Yeah, it was rough. It's cool now, but it was rough at first.
She's still rough. But at least all the it's got no holes in the sides of it now.
It's one of the nicest properties in Crescent Valley.
And that's saying something.
At least you have a nice motorhome inside the shop, not a school bus outside top of a Connex.
So I did get up in the middle of the night last night because I was staying at my motorhome out there, and it was raining, and we get this. You guys know, but you get crazy weather out here. In the high
totally
desert
random,
here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you'll have 70 degrees and then snowing, hail, blowing sideways, 40 miles an hour. I get up in the middle of the night, 3 a.m. and I open the door out of my trailer, and there's a river running through my shop, and I'm
shit.
Oh, that's nice. So I just closed the door and went back to sleep. I'm like, it'll probably be fine in the morning. Got up in the morning, everything's dry, it's sunny, and I'm like, okay,
Nevada.
Here we go.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes.
Yep. Yeah, it was hailing when we left Fernley, and then you get here, and it was perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was sunny when I got home, and now I think we're going to have winter for about 8 minutes, and then see blue sky. It'll probably be sunny again.
Yeah, your Tesla was getting hailed on out there. I didn't know what to do. The battery was probably just draining as it happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Trying to keep it warm, defrost the windows.
Yeah.
It is nice to get it in. It's just ready to go, though.
It sketches me out, though, because I'll come outside from the shop and the HVAC system's running on it, and I'll walk back in. I'm like, Tara, I think your car's on. And she's like, no, it's just keeping the temperature. And I was like, oh, that'd be fucking cool. I get my dually, and it's cold all the way till I get home. The temperature gauge comes off cold when I pull in my driveway. So that part would be cool.
I'm kind of curious about this, especially me and you being in the mining industry, especially underground mining. You've been in underground before.
Right. Oh yeah.
What is your thoughts on electric vehicles for underground? I saw one of those cyber trucks driving down the road, and I'm like, the concept is there, right, for using electric vehicles for underground mining, getting rid of the diesels and the vents. What happens if one of them catches on fire?
It's happened
What do
before,
you do?
and the whole mine shuts down for a long time, for a few days. Yeah. I mean, I get the idea. I think it's great because you can't, they have to watch their particle count and everything underground a lot. But I think once the technology gets better, you're definitely going to see it. It's definitely a thing to stay, I think, for just right now. We're just in the infant stages of it, for sure.
Okay.
But Sandvik, they have trucks that fucking have quick change battery packs. You pull up, they fucking take the battery pack out, put it in a charger, put the next battery pack in. So maintenance is usually starting on like a split shift. So they'll start like an hour or 2 hours different from production so that they can switch out batteries and shit while production comes off, and then they'll switch back in.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely coming. We have a little ways to go with it, but it's here to stay, I think.
Have you been working on any of those like hybrid machines lately? Those ones that are like electric drive and...
No, the only thing that we've really worked on, I worked on one D7E for an engine problem, not a drive problem, and then obviously all the electric haul trucks we work on.
Okay, yeah.
Which that's a hybrid in itself, but they're super simple. It's the same system they're locomotive systems.
Yeah, it's a freight train.
Yeah, and they've been in use since fucking the 60s or something. So it's pretty hardy. There's a lot to it, but if you know what you're doing, I'm not that guy. I will do the fucking haul truck side of it. We have Sparkies that do the electrical side of it, but it's relatively simple for the most part.
Can you electrocute yourself on one of those?
Oh, yeah, for
really?
sure.
Will
Yeah.
one of those actually take you out?
Yeah. Yours, like, we had a guy, one of our good friends, Braun, worked for me for a long time. He's a green card electrician for mining side of stuff, and he fucking loves it, but he's wild. But yeah, you have like discharge sticks, and you have to wear fucking, I forget what they call it when like electricity blasts off. I don't remember what it's called, but they have like little
Arc
shields.
shields,
Arc
yeah.
shield. There you go. Yeah. So I mean, there's a ton of voltage there, and like
I mean, even in the highway vehicles like the Tesla and stuff like that, they're around 600 volts. So
Yeah.
600 volts DC, you're gonna mess someone up.
you can fuck somebody
You
up.
can weld
Yeah.
some shit together with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they do weld shit together, like sometimes, but honestly, because that system's been in use for so long, they really have it fucking down. Like electric haul truck size in the 300-ton class is double, if not more, availability than a mechanical truck and cheaper to run.
Because they have so many less moving
Yeah,
parts.
less moving parts. You have less oil. Basically, you have a generator, some chopper modules, and electric motors, and a grid. And that's pretty much it. And they just fucking go. Like, you'll get... Most mining stuff has anywhere from 60 to 100,000 hours on it. And you get in something in construction that's got 20,000 hours and the thing's fucking worn out. It's done. But mining, they run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They never stop, so they have to have really fucking good stuff.
Do those the grids ever catch on fire?
Oh, yeah.
I've seen like on just CNC mills, they have those when you're doing slowing down the spindle.
Yeah.
It sends it all to a grid. I've seen those catch on fire, so I'd imagine they do it on the haul trucks.
Yeah, the haul truck grids definitely start on fire. And then the other thing that happens to them is when they get wet. When I worked at Marigold, we had, I think they're IGBT trucks. They were Hitachi trucks. And they were running a Siemens drive on them. And the grids, when they would get wet, would short out all the time. And it would fault out the truck, but they would it was cool. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you can see, like, I know, like, the LeBairs are, like, notorious for those grid heater boxes getting, like, crazy hot. And they have, like, a big fan, like a giant, like, 30-inch fan that will cool the grid heaters.
Right.
Like, when you get up to high idle, like, when you smash the throttle down your full load, I'm not sure exactly how the actual system works, but the power, when they let off the throttle, it has to go somewhere.
Right.
And it goes into these grid boxes, and then this fan sucks all the heat out. You think it's exhaust from the motor. It's not. It's this huge heat wave from these grids. It's like a big toaster.
Right.
That's crazy.
Well, you can essentially, like those electric trucks, you can dyno them. Themselves can dyno them because you can put an electric load into the grid versus what horsepower your engine should be making. So you can, unlike, a mechanical drive something, you can put it in second gear, get on the brake, and try and fucking load it up. But those electric trucks, you can send the full current straight to the grid, and you can find problems way faster because you can put a full load. Like, you can be building 40 pounds of boost out of a fucking V16, like an 80-liter V16, and it'll go full boost, and you can fucking drop it straight to a grid.
And that is a sight to see.
It is, and it sounds badass, too.
Oh, my God. Oh, yeah.
It takes a little while to spool, but she fucking sounds good once it does.
Is it load boxing?
Yeah,
or
load boxing,
Load
yep.
box, okay.
Yep.
And it's an actual setting, like in the Cummins computer, that you just click a box. But I think everything has to work correctly in the truck. So if it sees like a engine speed sensor fault, it won't do it.
Right.
Because it's pulling so much power if it's got a problem.
It has to know everything for sure. But it is cool to do. I never got into the electric side of stuff. That was always Braun. But we did the engine side and truck side of stuff. But, we worked simultaneously. So it was cool to see that kind of stuff.
So I was going to ask you a few questions, too. So you build these awesome, badass race motors and big horsepower. I always like working on like D10s, D11s. Okay, they have a 3508 that makes 700 horsepower. But it ain't the same as 700 horsepower in this giant 3508 versus 700 horsepower out of a small block Chevy. And I've like never really understood like what the difference is. I think that it's all based on RPM, right? So you can make 700 horsepower at 1,000 RPM in a 3508, but this engine at a small block Chevy that you build that makes a 700 horsepower makes it at 10,000 RPM, right? Is that the major?
Yeah. So how do we back this up? Horsepower is a calculation.
Yeah.
So it's torque times RPM divided by 5250 or 5252. I think it's 5252. And it's work. So you can convert horsepower to BTUs, kilowatts. Everything European and Japanese is kilowatts.
Right.
And your engine's the same thing. 3208, 3206, if I remember those numbers correctly. They have a kilowatt rating. It's the same thing. It's work, but you've got displacement. So there's 3 ways to make more power. We talked about this before, and I don't remember if I said it all right the last time. 3 ways to make more power. Number 1 is make the engine bigger. Number 2 is to put more air in it, which turbocharge, supercharge, nitrous. Or 3, turn it faster. So your NASCAR motor, they're stuck with the cubic inch rule, right? It has to be 355, 358, depending on where you're racing. So that's fixed. They can't put more air in it mechanically. So no turbo, no supercharger. So they got to spin the shit out of it. Almost 10,000 RPMs. And so it doesn't make the same, it'll never make the same torque as your big turbo diesel on 40 pounds of boost. But it can make 700 at 8,800 RPMs if it's only making 350 pounds of torque.
Right.
And I know this, I'm trying to like make it to where you guys understand what I'm trying to get at is I know you can't, let's say you have a motor like one that you built that makes 700 horsepower, and then you have this other big giant diesel motor that makes the same power rating, right? I just know for a fact you can't take that gas motor and put it in that truck that it's going in and have it do the same thing. Even though they're the same ratings,
no,
stuff ain't gonna work.
Torque
because
values are so much different.
Yeah, the torque multiplier. Yeah,
the torque is way different, and that's how that's actually doing work. Torque is, we explained it on the show before. Most people get it. Some people struggle with it, but you know what a torque wrench is, right? You got a bolt, you're tightening it. So whatever you apply at 1 foot. If you put 1 pound at 1 foot, that's 1 foot-pound. Right. And the diesel, it's huge, right? So it's 5.5 inches of stroke. So the stroke that's your torque wrench, right? Crank. The rod throw is your torque wrench. You got 5.5 inches of stroke. You can't turn that thing 8,800 RPMs.
No.
She's
going to leave.
Yep.
Yeah.
She's going to leave the chat.
You've got this huge torque arm, and then you put 40 pounds of boost to it. So now you put, technically, 40 pounds is, how many bars is that?
It's like 2 bar, right?
2.5.
2.5. It was bars 14.4 or something like that. Yeah.
So you're putting 2.5 times more air into that hole than an NA motor could take in on its own.
Right.
So now we can make a ton of power. And then diesel burns slower. There's more heat per pound in diesel, more BTUs. So we're pushing on that torque arm. We don't have to spin it fast now.
Right.
So the advantage to a diesel motor, it's super efficient because it's diesel. Diesel's more efficient. Turbocharged, more heat efficient. And then we have this huge lever arm. So we don't have to, we can run the thing at 2,200 RPMs, and the rings and the pistons and the bearings and the valve springs all last forever.
Right.
And not forever, but
100
times more than a gas motor.
Right.
So it is the most efficient. That's why the locomotive is the most efficient way to transport freight.
Well, and especially with that diesel too, because even 2,200 RPMs is, once you get over even like a 13-liter size, you're never even going to see that. Like your big diesels do 1,200, 1,400. You know what I mean? But
max RPM.
But you're also like, you take a C175 and you got a fucking 90 some liter engine, that's a lot of steel rotating, and even just to get it to stop rotating.
Yeah, rotating mass. Right?
Yeah,
The
rotating
weight
mass
of
of
the
it just
flywheel
going
itself.
around. Yeah.
Yeah, a ton of inertia stacked up in there.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered your question. What's the difference? You could. So
What I was trying to get
With
at
some
is
gear reduction,
you're not
you could get
taking
it to
you're
work.
not
Yeah.
taking, even though they have the same ratings, right? You could have, okay, hey, this one makes 700 horsepower and this one makes 700 horsepower. You aren't putting that Chevy motor in a 795 and have it do anything at all.
Well,
Even
and the
though-
biggest thing with that is like the diesel engine. If you have a diesel engine making 700 horsepower, you're probably cresting that 2,200 foot-pounds of torque mark, because a C15, base model C15 at 550 horsepower, you're making 1660 torque. That's like a common cat tune. And I don't think you probably see any gas engines that can fucking get close to 1,700 foot-pounds of torque.
no, something that fits in a car with boost, like knocking on 1,000 foot-pounds.
Is unreal.
That's like top of the food chain.
Right.
And it's not gonna last very long.
Because you're just spinning so much. It's just
Yes, it's RPM.
That
but
would
it's just,
need some boost too. I
It's
think, to
just
get
that would be boosted.
Yeah.
That's just, you're beyond the edge of the engineering or design of the package. Like, so your normal LS3 is 544 horsepower and is it 400? It's like 440 foot-pounds. So if you put an atmosphere boost to it, 15 pounds, you'll get 800 foot-pounds of torque out of it. It's just not going to last very long.
Right.
It'll make 800 foot-pounds. You could do a gear reduction. So you could turn this thing at 6,000 and gear it down to 2,200. And what comes out of the tail shaft would be probably 2,000, 2,200 foot-pounds of torque.
Right.
But it would last minutes.
Right.
It wouldn't last, what do you say, 100,000 hours?
Well, no, the engines usually, you'll midlife an engine at like probably 12,500 hours. You'll get new turbo, injectors, water pump, sometimes oil pump, that kind of stuff. You'll just kind of help the engine out. And then
it's a heavy service.
A heavy service.
A rebuild. That's not a rebuild.
Not a rebuild, heavy service. And then usually from the 20 to 25,000 mark on a large diesel is when you're going to remove it and either completely rebuild it, or most customers they'll buy an engine like from Quinton and just swap it, send their engine back to them, they rebuild it, and it just continues the cycle.
Yeah, I'll say rarely customers, especially when you get into the big mining game, they rarely run things to destruction. Like,
Right.
They will turn in what they call a core, which is the engine. It still operates as it should. It might have oil leaks. It might, have this or that, overheating, whatever it was. But it'll have 25,000, 30,000
It's
hours.
just houred out but not filled yet.
Exactly.
Well, it's
because-
worth way more.
Yeah.
Yes.
Parts aren't hanging out.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Well,
That's like
and
an airplane
for-
motor.
Yeah.
Well, just the rebuildability of in itself of having that engine on the shelf for them, to where if they end up having an early failure in a truck, having that spare motor on the shelf is worth so much more to them than blowing up an engine
Versus
and just buying
downtime and
another one.
waiting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when it's broken, it's not worth anything.
No. And their downtime costs them per machine hundreds, if not thousands of dollars per hour per machine.
Yeah.
So if you buy a $350,000 engine, yeah, it seems expensive, but if that thing's sitting down and it's $1,000 an hour, it doesn't take
It
very
adds
long
up. It
before
adds up.
fucking that
adds
engine
up
didn't
quick.
mean nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing in your comparison, though, to pay attention to is how much work is being done for the size of the engine, though. So, I mean,
Exactly.
those engines
That's-
are massive, and you're
Yeah.
talking about,
They're not doing that much work.
say like a NASCAR engine, or SP22, 358 cubic inch or whatever, making 700 horsepower. I mean, that's a lot of power in a very small package.
Right. Well, and that's what I always laugh too, because people always talk shit about C7s. I love C7s. Every fucking surface truck I own has a C7 in it. And
I thought he was talking about C7 Corvettes for a minute.
no,
Alex, wait.
We don't even know what those are.
I like Triton V10s.
I didn't
dude.
see
don't
your
like
I didn't see your jorts and Nikes, man.
Yeah. I'm getting there, dude.
You have
I'll
to
get
have white tennis shoes.
I'll get some Nikes with some grass stains here in a little bit. Got to get that grass first. But they always, they're like, oh my God, you can't push more than 330 horsepower of a C7. It's going to have a ton of problems. It doesn't. You're trying to make 350 horsepower and 800 foot-pounds of torque out of a 7-liter engine. Like, it's not that crazy. You're going to be fine. I do it on all my trucks, and it's fine. But the diesel world is super concerned about that. You turn it up, it's going to die. And you can get to that point, but you're also talking about like long haul truck drivers that they're doing 1,000 miles a day or whatever they do, and they do it 300 days out of the year. Those miles add up. So if you compare that to a race engine, it would never last that long, but you can definitely pump them up to do a little bit more and still have really good long life out of them.
Well, and I think there's a lot of production stuff, your OE specs when you build an engine, it's the same as the Chevy LS3. Like, it has to make it out of warranty.
Right.
You buy a crate motor for some knucklehead doing a swap, and it still comes with a 2-year warranty.
Right.
So they're not going to make it awesome. They're going to make it through warranty.
Right.
And you have the same thing. You're just building to the warranty spec. You know there's more available.
Right.
You know it can do more. And the LS at, probably close to 6, it probably would make the warranty if they knew everything else in the car was right.
Right.
So, but that motor, your twin turbo LS3 making 800 foot-pounds, that's like a 12.5-hour motor at wide open.
Right.
And the major service is not like injectors.
Right. It's a rebuild.
It's everything but the block.
Right. I really don't know anything about gas engines. Are any gas engines sleeved, or are they all parent bore?
Well, no. Well, that's a good question. And we're doing an EcoBoost right now, 2nd gen. Almost every single thing on the planet is sleeved.
Oh, okay.
But everyone's trying something different. And it's like they tried this stuff back in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s. So obviously aluminum is lighter.
Right.
We're trying to get fuel economy, so we need to build a light engine.
Right.
So all your LS aluminum blocks are sleeved, but it's a cast-in sleeve, not removable.
Oh, okay.
I wonder how they get away with that. How do you even do that?
It's just the pour box, right? So big sand casting, and they have basically coat hangers that hold, and it's more complicated than this. But it's 4 coat hangers that hold the sleeve, and then they pour in the aluminum.
Oh, okay.
And so you'll get,
and so it fits in all the pores of the aluminum.
Yeah.
And that's how you can. So it's not pressed in. They actually like pour it in.
They'll pour over the top and over the bottom.
Gotcha.
Okay. And so now it's captive. All your Subarus are that way. It's a poured in liner. If you take an LS3 apart and you look at it closely, you'll see like, man, the bore's not the sleeve is not centered.
Oh,
it's not. That's why they limited how much you can bore in LS3, for example, is because they know the tolerance of pouring the sleeve, it's off enough that you can't go, 60 over on an LS3 without being in the aluminum. The new stuff, I don't know what Ford calls the technology. It's a 4-letter acronym, I guess.
Junk.
But they're spraying, so it's like plasma.
Oh, okay.
So they cast an aluminum block, and then they, like a plasma gun, but it's a machine, they spray molten metal, nickel, silicone, and carbide as the liner onto the block, and it's about 6 or 8 thou thick.
Okay.
Some were thinner, some are thicker, and then they got to hone that. You can only hone it with a diamond.
Right.
It's that hard. But it wears really well.
Oh, okay.
And I guess they have the production cost down where that's the cheapest way to do it. So that's how they're doing it. The downside is, and BMW, a lot of guys are doing the same thing. It's not serviceable.
Right.
So we had a BMW in last year, production 2-liter current, and he brought me a set of 10 over pistons. I know nothing about this motor except the BMW 4-cylinder. He's like, here's my 10 over pistons. I'm like, okay, set the hone. And after about 4 thou, the liner was gone.
Oh no!
That was like,
Oh no! Why do they make 10 over pistons for it if you go through the liner? How's that even a thing?
I am at that argument with Manley right now because they make 20 over pistons for an EcoBoost.
And it's not possible.
Well, I have an EcoBoost.
On some of them, it is possible. Apparently.
Okay.
Evidently, in the production of that motor, because they put in everything, there were 2 different sleeves used, and no one knows. Like, did you Google it?
Very briefly, I haven't got into detail on it.
You couldn't find anything conclusive.
The thing is, they go from everything from your production work truck that, with the EcoBoost all the way up to, the Ford GT with the same EcoBoost.
Right.
So some of them might have some slight variations to it, but there's not a lot of data on there of like what has
There's no like serial number break or anything for the engine.
I called Manly and I said, hey, I need to order pistons. I thought they made a 2-over,
Right.
which would make sense. And he's like, no, we make 10s and 20s. And I said,
How?
Can I bore the block 10? And he goes, well, we sell a piston for it. I'm like, okay, shit. Well, we're gonna wreck an $1,800 block next week.
Yeah.
Is everyone just sleeving those things though? I mean,
Well, there's a ton of guys sleeving them, but there's
So they're
also
just boring them bigger and then throwing a sleeve in it.
yeah, just
Yeah.
cut everything out, put a ductile iron sleeve in it, then it'll run forever.
Right.
But a replacement block, I think it's 1,800 or no, it's 1,300. So a replacement block is $1,300. We have the budget. If we wreck the block, we can like charge a customer $200 more and just be like, yeah, we got a new block.
Right.
So there's guys selling that block, and they don't say it starts with a new block, but it's standard bore. And there's guys short blocks, and there's guys that say, oh, our short block is sleeved.
Right.
So they're getting cores from the junkyard putting sleeves in it, but a sleeve job is like twice the cost of a new block. So
Right.
if this customer's trying to make like 500, it's not monumental. A stock block would be fine. The reason the engine came in is the crankshaft was broken too.
Oh, gotcha.
And I guess that's a common problem. No one tells you that until you do some research. The replacement crankshaft from Ford was $283.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty cheap.
And it's a nice crankshaft.
Okay.
bad.
It's in the assembly room. I was like, what? I can't get a crank reground for $283.
Dude, I'm used
Yeah.
to paying like $20,000 for a crankshaft.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, so I'm like, we'll just put all new stuff in it. If we have to replace a block, we replace a block. I don't know what sleeve it has, but when we go to hone it,
Right.
the piston manufacturer doesn't know, which is kind of scary.
Yeah, especially a good piston manufacturer like that.
It's
Yeah.
a good. He's expecting me to know more, I guess, but it's weird. It's a weird one. Like Manly makes a lot of guys make a +1, a +2 for a Subaru, and that's to fix a factory block.
Right.
Okay. But they don't make a +1 or a +2. But the BMW had the same problem. A very reputable piston manufacturer made a 10-over, and the place the guy bought it from didn't say anything about sleeving it.
Right.
And I called the guy and I said, "Hey, guess what? We're sleeving this block because that block was not $1,800,
Right.
And we have to sleeve it to use this piston, or just to fix it now because we literally honed the sleeve out of the block."
Yeah.
So
Now, will you build stock engines for customers? Say, hey, I want my 5.3 rebuilt. Will you do that?
5.3 LS?
Yeah. Or will you just...
I
Is it
totally will.
horsepower?
We will totally. We can do anything the customer wants.
Okay.
I think it's a waste of time.
Yeah. Because you can buy it
because
for
it's-
whatever...
Well, so there's guys that do reman. If you're gonna do, I love LS. That's one of my favorite platforms. But if you came to me and you said, I want an LS3 that makes 450 horsepower or 550 horsepower, I would sell you a crate motor.
Okay.
2-year warranty. I know it's gonna work, and I can't build it that cheap.
Right.
You can buy a LS3 long block for $6,200, $6,600, something like that. Cast iron V8, I quote people, $7,000 is a starting point. So for a 289 Ford that makes 160 or 130 horsepower, buy a reman. There's still guys doing that stuff.
Right. Right.
The quality isn't there.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be good for the power that they're rated for. You wouldn't want to go into anything above that.
No,
but
it would be
if you
totally
want-
fine. Yeah.
yeah, if you want a quality motor that actually is going to make that power plus some, then you'd actually build it with some nice components.
See,
Yeah.
I feel like so far out of my realm, like talking about, let's build this motor huge, let's do this, put Manly pistons in it, or I don't even know what you call it, like what kind of performance parts you can buy for a motor. Because when I build an engine, especially for Cat, or when we build a 3500 or 3400 Caterpillar engine, we build it directly to OEM spec.
Yeah.
We go right to the Cat dealer, we buy all the parts for it, put it back together, because we know that engine is going to run at high idle its entire life. It is
Forever,
meant
yeah.
to run at 2200 RPM its entire life. And we know if we buy those parts from Cat, it's just going to do that.
Yeah.
So when I get, a trucker that calls me, hey, I want my C18 to make 700 horsepower. And I'm like, well, OE doesn't recommend that. So I'm not going to, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with staying away from that.
Right.
You'll make money putting it back the way that works.
But if
You'll
they're
make
gonna
money
pay for
doing
it,
that.
I mean, that's gonna be pretty freaking cool. So I mean,
Well, you could. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen some MTI stuff out of Bonneville that's not stock boost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like about a mile of black smoke.
Yep.
I will say the OE side of me. So I had a 2015 Hellcat that I bought pretty much brand new. And
Oh, we were going to ask if he had a hot rod.
I've actually-
still have to. We gotta
yeah,
go
I got
through the
rid of it,
history of
so-
your cars. here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, people used to always give me shit. Oh, my Honda Civic with, my B18 with this turbo makes 700 horsepower. And I'm like, mine's 700 horsepower with a warranty.
Yeah, there's a huge difference.
Exactly.
You can run laps around the Honda guy.
You
Like-
would have a Hellcat.
I mean, it
Dude.
is.
They're the greatest car ever.
It's like driving a boat. Those things weigh so much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
but
God.
Have you seen all those memes where the semi trucks are in the ditch and shit, and it's like
Yeah.
only the heaviest cars survive?
Dude, it is Mopar or no car
Yeah,
for me.
yeah.
Are you shitting me?
Dude, I just pulled in I got a 68 Cornet.
Should we vet our...
Yeah,
our-
start betting our gas. I don't
Hey,
know.
I don't mind Mopar. I mean, we just built one the other day at the shop.
Oh,
You
dude,
run
I
Chevy
thought that
shit
turned
and
out pretty
off-road
good.
stuff, though.
Oh yeah, dude, 4.8 LS, best motor ever made for a rock crawler ever.
Yeah.
I straight up ran one out of oil, like was rod knocking, drove back to camp, went to O'Reilly's, sanded the crank down, like polished it with Emery with like 320 Emery, put it back together.
Probably still runs.
Dude, was out there the next day, hammered, drunk, on limiter all day, did not scatter, and I still drive that car around.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. You can't do that with a 5.7 Hemi.
Hey, just watch.
I don't know what.
She might
O'Reilly
tick,
won't
but
have
she'll be
parts
all
for
right.
it.
Yeah. I have what's our 1500 guy? It's not a 5.7. What's the smaller?
6.2 or 6.4?
No, it's smaller than a 5.7. It's like is it a 5.3 or something?
They have like isn't it a 4.7 or 4.8 or
4.7.
something?
That's what
4.7.
it. Yeah, 4.7.
Yeah.
And I put
Those
more.
things are
I put
garbage.
2 fucking engines in that thing because apparently it's a problem that they lose lifters and it like wears through the fucking side
Maybe
of the
they
block.
just tick a little bit.
Yeah,
You got to get over
well,
that
the
part.
tick gives up and it fucking stops. And yeah, so we're on 2. It's got like, in its defense, it does have shit. We're over 400,000 miles on it, I think, and so it's on its second engine that's starting to tick now. But my F-150s, dude, those 5.4 Tritons, man.
They might shoot a spark plug out like
Yeah.
every once in a while, but, dude,
they live.
tough as fuck.
So Scrawny Donnie's still driving our first one. I bought it from Reed with like, I think it had 280,000 miles on it. Had a rod knock. And we did its first oil change at like 30,000 miles after I bought it. And it's got well over 500 now. And you go out there and that motherfucker torches. Everything else
Oh,
is
yeah.
falling off of it, but the thing torches right off.
Is
Well,
that
dude,
the
what
same
was-
one you did the burnout in?
Yeah,
At
in the shop till
Yeah.
tire pop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was Bluey?
Oh, that was a V10.
V10. Oh,
Yeah.
dude, that
I'm
was the
still
best truck
outnumbered.
ever.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Dude,
The-
there was so much nostalgia. When I
There
hopped in
was,
that thing,
yeah.
and dude, it fired up after sitting for like 10 years, blew the dust out, all the Highcroft dust and
Yeah.
soot and everything. I just felt like my dad yelling at me. Just with the
Yeah,
same
he's-
truck we used to have when I was a kid. And then
Yeah.
and this guy goes and blows it up. Actually, no, it was Donnie.
No, it was
blew-
Raul blew it up. Raul and Austin.
Oh, those fuckers. That was
Yeah.
such
That
a
makes
great
sense.
truck.
Yeah, it was a good truck. And if you hit the dash just right, the stereo would come back
That's
on.
right, yeah.
That was fun.
There's no Chevy guys here again.
I have
Well,
one
you
Chevy.
said
and
off-road
it's been
stuff,
doing
right?
good.
You got
Yeah,
a
I've got,
Chevy?
well, no, I've got a, so I've got a Range Rover Classic.
Oh, God.
That I,
That's even worse.
You maybe just stop talking.
Just wait. It gets better, don't
Range
worry.
Rover Classic.
Cut the top off it. Full cage, LS, SM465,
Okay.
203, 205 doubler,
It's
60.
getting better.
Yeah, it's got a Quinton 60 up front, 14 bolt rear, 4-link front and rear, and it's been to Sand Hollow a bunch, running 14s, 13s, 14s. I always usually break it on a 14. Car, I love that car. I've beat the crap. I used to drive it every day. Bought that thing when I was 18. Would drive it to work every single day. Blew the front axle up just driving on the road because they're trash. And I had the great idea. I'm not going to buy a Jeep. I'm just going to go keep building this Range Rover and have $1 million in something that's still worth $2.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's got LS in it, though. Thank God.
Well, it's a 5.3. It's not an LS.
What's your bomber car have in it?
That's still an LS.
Aren't they different? I thought they were different. They're not an LS.
It's an LS.
It's close enough.
4.8
Okay.
to 7 liter. Well, no, 4.8 to 454 is It's all in LS.
I put one of those Texas Speed bald eagle cams in it.
There you go. Does it just chop like crazy or what?
So stupid. It makes no power now down low at all. It's just a bog dog the whole time.
But it sounds good.
Oh, dude, when she freaking barks off after like 45, it hits like VTEC. It's like full blown VTEC, and that thing is just straight up. Whop, bop, 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 bop. I'll just drive around double low first gear, riding through camp, just bop, 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 looking at everybody, trying to get attention. I feel like a Harley rider.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh God,
It can't idle. You
great.
just sit there and just blipping the throttle
Yeah.
every time you come to a stop.
Oh no, dude, just full throttle like to the mat, the whole thing.
Bald eagle.
America.
That's basically what Alex wanted in his boat.
Yeah, it is.
But
It still chops pretty good, but it's not that.
it runs good all around.
It
though.
does run good all around when it's on top of the water.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
definitely not recommend that cam for it won't idle. It won't start. You have to give it like half throttle for it to start. It just won't like. You gotta wait for everything to warm up before it starts like trying to idle. Idles at like 1,200 RPM. It's just stupid. Just dumb. It's just worthless. So that's not the only car I got. So I have a bomber. I don't know if you heard of like bomber fabrication.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got.
So
what
do you race it then, or
No, so I have what you call the trail bomber. So it's basically the same chassis that Randy Slauson designed, and it's shrunk down to like, so it's better for like competition crawling, and it's a rear steer car, 43s. It's got
like all air shocks then, or
so it's got King coilovers,
Okay.
and they're 2.0s. I should have air shocks. I almost like those better for hardcore wheeling because you'll get up like on a huge ledge, and a coilover with the spring just inherently pushes you back.
yeah, it does. It
So
doesn't want to compress.
Yeah, it wants to unload real bad. And an air shock, you can run it at whatever pressure you want, right?
Right.
It won't unload, right? So it'll just stick you right where you want to be on the rocks. But where I love the coilover is the second you get on the trail to go home,
Right.
you just put that thing in fourth gear and hammer the throttle and you're gone. When all my buddies on portals are just getting jarred to death, their wives are yelling at them, throwing stuff, and I'm just cruising on home.
What motor's in that?
4.8. Totally stock 4.8. I don't like to put like performance stuff on like my rock crawlers and other than Bob.
It'll run forever.
Yeah, the full-blown limiter, and I've had that car so jammed in a crack at Sand Hollow where it's full throttle, all the tires are not moving, torque converter's like full stall, just so stuck and jammed. Had to have a buddy drive up on top of a ledge and winch me up to get my tires free.
Oh wow.
And then you got some old muscle cars too, don't you?
Yeah, got a 68 Cornet that I found in a field in Prineville, Oregon. Been sitting since 1981. Just brought that car into my shop. I sent you pictures of it, right? I was like, dude, I'm going to paint this car. And so I'm not a painter. I'm not a fabricator. I don't have like that artistic eye for, hey, dumbass, if you don't take Bondo here and fill in this dent, you're going to see it if you paint a car gloss black. So
Gloss
sent-
black is like the worst
Oh,
you can do.
dude.
Yeah.
So I send him
Yeah,
pictures.
first car should be white.
Well, I'm used to painting heavy equipment, right? So I'm used to painting stuff cat yellow. I'm like, wow, this is great.
Just get
I
your
did a-
Wagner
Oh,
house
dude.
painter fucking sprayer
Did you-
on.
You saw that, right?
Yeah.
This is a true story. So I'm out there in Crescent Valley, and I've got a fleet of rental equipment. So I got these big 631 scrapers that we run, and one of them I wanted to like repaint, go through it, like make sure ready for rent, right? And I like my stuff looking nice. So a scraper, if you've ever seen one, that's a big machine. Like there's a
Right.
lot of real estate to paint. And I'm like, I'm gonna buy one of those house paint sprayers. Right? Like, you know, you can buy at Harbor Freight, like
Yeah.
the ones you just with like it has like a tank, like an airless sprayer.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I could shoot paint 20 feet with one of those things. So
Oh,
I go,
no.
I like
Oh.
your style.
I go and I buy one. I got this scraper painted in like an hour. This thing just lays the meat to that paint, just lays it down. I went through like 5 gallons of paint in less than an hour.
Yeah.
Just
That's what
full blown.
we used to do it at TR when we do the TR rebuilds. We would just fucking, we had we had the Wagner electric. It was like basically a DeWalt battery one. And you just fucking fill the bottle up with paint hardener. And then you just,
Oh, yeah.
and you'd have the whole thing done in like fucking an hour.
Just
It worked
covered
good.
in, dude. Of course, I don't wear a respirator. Don't
Yeah,
wear a
me neither.
mask. I'm outside, just in the dirt in my cover, all spraying this thing.
Well,
I
if you're
look,
30 feet away, you're fine.
Yeah. Well,
But it-
Underground Billy, you know his nice mullet he has?
Oh,
It had
yeah.
the most cat yellow tinge to that mullet.
you're definitely getting some overspray.
Yeah. And the best part about equipment, you can just spray outside in the dirt.
Oh, dude, I
Yeah.
don't mask off anything.
No.
I spray it, and then I take brake clean, and I brake clean off everything that needs to be clear,
Oh, man.
and then I emery all the cylinders when I'm done.
Yeah. I cover cylinders, but
Looks like $1 million,
yeah.
unless you try and paint a car gloss black.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Then you're sending pictures to this guy in the middle of the night, going, "I'm gonna send you this picture at this angle where it looks kind of presentable." And then I look at that and I'm like, shit, there's still a bunch of dents in there. I gotta find another picture. I gotta find another corner of this car that's
I
not.
think
fucked
my
up.
reply was, "You did black, huh?"
Well, I mean, as Jimmy would say, if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly.
Yeah.
I like the 68 Cornet though. I got a 69 Super B.
Oh, cool. All right. So, what's kind of funny this is kind of a newer thing that I learned. So I always thought the Super B was like a higher trim level than an RT. It's not. The RT was above the Super B, and in the Super B you got the 383 and the Rally Dash.
You could still get the 440 in it in some packages.
I didn't know you could. Okay. I know for 68, for at least the Super B in 68, it had the Rally Dash, and the 383 was like the point that you bought the Super B. That's like why you bought that car, was it had a 383 as standard, and if you wanted the RT, you got a 440.
Yeah, the higher end Super B that you could get was you could either get the 426 Hemi or the 440, I believe. So.
Talking about Hemis. So this car was sold brand new in Prineville, Oregon in 1968. The Hemi was $300 more. Guy didn't want to buy it.
So the
That's like
story on the,
$100,000 more. Now.
Oh
Yeah,
my
exactly.
God. It's just,
the backstory on the Super B. So my grandma got that when she got out of the service in '69, and she had the option of buying the Hemi, and it wasn't that much more. She had the money, but she was like, it's got better mileage, so I'll get the 3.
Yeah.
I was like, Grandma.
What's the matter with you?
do? Yeah.
I've never hit a woman before, but I'm about to.
It's $100,000.
Oh, man. Vaughn was the same with his Mustang. Bought that thing off the showroom floor, and it was like, I don't know how much it was, but it was a couple $100 more for something that would be worth, $500,000 now.
Right.
It's like, it was another $28.
Yeah.
I wanted to
not
stop
paying
at the
for
Frosty
that.
on the way home, so I couldn't get
I was
that.
on a fixed income. I'm like, oh, Vaughn.
You see, but back in the day, especially me being younger, so I always said my biggest mistake was never being born in 1971, where I could
Right.
afford to buy a Cuda for $28 and a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah.
It's my biggest mistake in life.
Mm.
Not born at the right
But
time.
no one knew then.
Right.
What's interesting is that generation that values those cars, they're dying.
Oh, yeah.
And the next generation, I mean, I mean, 70s, 60s and 70s iron isn't that attractive to me. There's some cool cars.
Right.
But not like my dad would remember.
Right.
But my son, he thinks like a 2002 Civic.
Oh,
What's
yeah.
what's
just-
the-
well,
What was the one with the T-tops? That Del Sol.
Yeah.
I mean, they're free to be wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
Like he's like, oh, I really miss my Del Sol. That was a classic. And I was like, oh my god, I would demolition derby that thing if it lived, but it won't. It
Well,
should
it's
be in
kinda
a
like-
scrapyard.
I feel the same way a lot about like 30s cars. Like I think you can make a really cool car out of it. But if you're just cruising down the road and you see an old 30s wagon, you're like, oh, that's cool, but I'm not paying $200,000 for it.
Mm-mm.
But I think you're right. The last of that generation that really enjoys that muscle car, that has the money to pay for it,
Well, they're dying.
They're dying. Yeah, absolutely. And then the 80s and 90s was just maybe a skip. That there's not a lot of cool
There's
shit
not a-
that came
yeah.
out.
I mean,
think
we're
anyone
talking
liked
about
that
classic Range Rovers. I mean, you know.
Oh.
Fox bodies and classic Range Rovers.
Dude.
I don't know. I mean, like the late 70s, early 80s, like Ford LTD. I mean, that's a pretty bad ride.
It is.
Cool
Yeah,
car. Well, it's just like Buick Regals, right? Those are worth some money now.
they are. Yeah,
10 years ago, those cars I don't think were worth.
you couldn't
What
give
the-
away. Yeah,
I don't know who's chasing those down. I think they're darker skinned than me. I think.
remember that G body that was at SEMA, the one that was down the road from us.
Uh-huh.
That thing was cool. It was a total sleeper. Look, it was had blacked out windows. It was black, but it looked like the day it came off the showroom floor. And he was twin turboed, and he was putting down like fucking 825 or something. It was a cool car.
Dude, I love those turbocharged Buicks. Those
Yeah.
things are cool, but
Yeah.
they're just butt ugly. They're just
Those
ugly.
Grand Nationals are sketchy. So we
Yeah.
had one. Well, my boss had one, and we would drive that thing around. and it was built up pretty good, and it had a it was a pretty good sized Garrett ball bearing turbo on it, and it was making like 600 horse. Thing was nuts. But we put some slicks on that thing, and it would try picking up the front end, but there was so much chassis twist on that thing, you thought the windows were going to blow out every time you drove it, because seriously, like, it would twist up and you thought like, oh man, I'm hanging the front tire. It's all just body
Don't
flex.
they actually have like what it's called, the G-body
stiffeners and stuff?
No, they call it like the G-body shuffle or something.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
when you turn one into like a drag car, the whole car just wants to go the opposite direction.
It's sideways, and it started getting cracks and stuff on the side by the end because it twists so much.
I feel like the what was the first electric one you guys did? The Honda.
Tesla Honda.
The Tesla Honda, yeah.
Tesla Honda.
That one,
What a
that
great
thing was
name.
cool, but it was sketchy to ride into. That thing twisted so bad.
It actually drove fairly straight. It was just a very minimal holding that thing on there. Cause
Right,
It
right.
was just we switched it to a solid axle front.
Well,
end
the
and
wheelbase
a
on it
Honda
was that of
Accord.
a Huffy bicycle, so
Yeah, and then you're making, what is the Tesla motor is like 700 horsepower or something
Yeah.
like that. So got with it pretty good.
yeah. Is that hail or pigeons, Eric?
It's hail.
Oh, okay.
I was
It's
like, I don't
sunny
think
over
there's-
there.
Yeah.
I don't see any birds.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get
No, this is
olives off the olive
I can
tree,
see
but-
summer over there,
Yeah.
spring, but we're in winter right now.
Oh, okay. Winter's on this side.
I mean, I think you chose the best place to do a podcast with a metal roof.
yeah.
Open air metal roof.
Yeah. So let's get into your business a little bit. What are your goals, and what have been some of the things that you overcame in the scrap/rental equipment
Okay.
business?
Well, I was actually talking to my dad a couple of weeks ago about, where we were at and where I wanted to be, and I just told him, I was like, I've in this life, where I'm at right now, I've got everything I've ever wanted,
Right.
and all I'm doing now is just building on top of that to where it secures me in the next 10 to 20 years where I don't have to work the rest of my life.
Right.
And it really shows you that if you work hard when you're young and you don't get the golden handcuffs of a brand new truck and a side-by-side, and you really put your mind to, hey, this is what I want to have and this is where I want to be in the next 10 years, have a goal in mind, you can make it happen. It's definitely possible.
And I think a lot of it has to do with doing things outside the box, like scrapping old iron
Exactly.
or buying old iron at pennies on the dollar, fixing it up and renting it out.
I mean,
Like-
and we're both white, and
Yeah.
we have that huge leg up.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of privilege.
Not the same leg that Drew has. He's got an extra one, but
Well, I think a big part with your own business that a lot of people, a common mistake is that at year 4, like they made it past all the years when they said you're going to fail, and at year 4 you're like, oh, we're making money, and then they go drag racing or they go buy an
Right.
airplane or some high maintenance expensive something, and it sounds like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you put your money back in the business, and that's it makes a huge difference.
I'll say my biggest saving grace was definitely loving what I do, right? So it wasn't like doing rentals and doing parts and buying equipment, scrapping it out. It wasn't something just because it makes you a bunch of money. It was, I actually like to, it's all about the chase, right?
Yeah.
It's all about the hunt of, hey, there's a D10T sitting out at this mine with no track frames on it, the engine's blown up, and I'm going to buy this thing for 20 grand, and then I'm going to sell a final drive to Alex here for 100, right?
Yeah.
Not just you, I get everyone. But it's, it's all about like the thrill of buying this thing, blowing it apart into a million pieces, and then rebuilding the components and then making money on it, and getting involved with the mining industry in general. Like when I took it over from my dad, we were not in mining at all. We didn't have any. We didn't know what an MSHA was. We
Right.
didn't know what an MSHA document was. But I love like big heavy iron. I love rolling coal. I love big D10s. And my first big customer I got into was Barrick Gold, and that was back before they were Nevada gold mines. It was Barrick Cortez, and I got in there. I sold him a front axle for a 420, a little backhoe, and it just kind of took off from there. I drove to the mine, dropped the axle off, and then it just slowly started seeding out to the rest of the mines. And it was a couple years after that I met Al and eventually got into rental equipment because I could see the Pete equipment. What's the other big
Heavy
one?
metals.
Heavy metals.
Yeah.
And I could see them running their trucks, and I'm like, wow, that would be cool to do that. And I can buy this tractor for this amount. I can put this much money into it, and I can do exactly what these guys are doing
Without buying the $3 million tractor up front.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I know I can do this, and you just put your mind to it. You can make it happen. And I started with, let's see, what was the first one? It was
Had to be one of your D7s,
no,
was it?
it was the 24.
Oh, the 24, yeah.
Yeah.
The one that came to the shop.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was, dude, the old Winnemucca shop.
Yeah.
The old Mucka shop.
Yeah.
So I was talking with a big customer of mine, and they needed a 24. They needed a spare one, and they didn't have it allotted in their budget to buy another machine. And I'm like, would you rent one from me if I got one? And they're like, we'll talk. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I go on the hunt, right? Now it's all about the hunt. Let's find a 24. And that's a little bit different than going out and buying a mini excavator from Arnold or the cat dealer, right? Because there was only, how many 24s were made? 500 of them?
So
you have to go and call different people and just know where to look, and ended up finding one at a coal mine in Canada that was closing. Fly up there, check the machine out. I'm like, I'll give you this much. They go, sold, Quinton, you can have it. Get the machine, bring it right to Al's shop, and I'm like, Al, fix it.
yeah. And that turned into a shit show in itself because I was renting a shop at the time. The guys tore it apart like a fucking tornado hit it. So I got in trouble for that because it's fucking oil.
Oh, it was the
filled.
oil, the diff
the
oil.
Yeah, so then Don
Frickin'
had
Billy.
had to take a skid steer over there, dig out like 3 feet of soil. We had to fucking clean harbors it. Then we had to fucking put new soil in. And it turned into a nightmare. But yeah, it was cool.
So I didn't have the shop yet. So I had got the 24 going, brought it to Al, talk with the mine. They're like, yep, Quinton, we'll give you a contract for 2 years we'll rent this machine from you. I said, okay, sweet. Get the machine out there, starts running, and I'm like, let's do another one. So I start calling around. I'm like, okay, what else are you guys looking for? And like, oh, well, we need a D10. I'm like, okay, all right. This is probably the greatest thing ever, but they had a D10 out there. Blown motor. And I'm like, I talked to another guy, because the mine, even though they're one place, they don't talk to each other.
No.
So I talked to the guy that sells the machines, and I'm like, you want to sell me that D10? Sure. Buy the D10. Get it to the shop. Fix it all. I think you put the motor in it.
Yeah, you guys bought a new engine from Cat.
Yeah.
We rebuilt the transmission converter finals, and I think Joe did the track frames, put the tracks on.
Yep.
We did the rest of it, and rented it back to him.
Yes.
It was their tractor.
They
Even better.
They when I go to get the contract, they're like, we show this machine in our system. Is it a different one? And I'm like, no.
It was yours.
Yeah.
I'm like, I couldn't afford to buy one from the cat dealer. I had to get one from you guys. So started with that D10, and then moved on to got a 16H, and then scrapers. And oh my God, scrapers are the worst and best piece of equipment you could ever own.
Yeah.
Because when they run, they make you money. But when they're down, you lose so much money, you want to jump off a roof with an extension cord wrapped around your neck.
And they go down hard because they just fight themselves all day long. And when they break good.
And we have long talks, me and Al, about fixing scrapers and working on them. And I'll call him to help me troubleshoot stuff. And usually he's like, well, it ain't going to be a cheap one. It ain't going to be cheap.
He's like,
You want me to send Donnie?
yeah.
You want me to send Donnie? And I'm like, oh, God, I got to deal with Donnie. He'll fix it.
He's like, Quinton, it's 3 o'clock on Friday. I got beer to drink. I didn't work Monday through Thursday, but it's Friday.
I haven't done a hotel pop in a long time, Quinton.
You might have
Is Donnie the same Donnie I know?
Yeah, you might have to explain the hotel pop.
Donnie's the one that showed up in the hot tub with no underwear with 3 dudes.
That's right. That's right.
We asked him about it, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" He looked down, and he didn't even realize his underwear were off. I'm like, "What are you doing, dude?"
It's like, I don't know.
That's Donnie.
Yeah, that's Donnie. But yeah, it works good though. It's a good little thing we got going, I think.
I haven't had my tires slashed yet or anything like that, so I
Yeah.
think we've been doing good.
Yeah, he'll leave every now and again if he doesn't like Quinton's job. He just goes home.
Oh yeah,
Yep. And he's like, I'm not doing this. He just drives all the way home.
that's definitely happened.
Yeah, a couple times.
What was it? It was the cylinder. It was the load cylinder for the hitch.
For the hitch. He's like, I'm not doing this.
Hey, and to my defense, I told Al.
I thought he said
load
bowl cylinder. So Don went out to go do a bowl cylinder, and it was the load cylinder, and Don just fucking got back in his pickup, drove home.
And the biggest difference between that and like the bowl and the load.
Yeah.
The load cylinder, you got to split the machine in half.
Yeah, the bowl
Take it
cylinder's like a
totally
couple hour
apart.
job. And then the Quinton had a that D7 that you're working on for Cortez. When Donnie went out there.
The D9.
Oh, it was D9, yeah.
Oh, dude.
Donnie went out there and like some of the ports weren't covered. The caps fucking blew off or whatever. And Don gets out there and he's like, nope. Gets in his pickup, drives all the way home. And mind you, it's a 3-hour fucking drive out there. So
Yeah, and then I get a bill. Drive time this way, drive time. Didn't have the parts. Didn't have the parts to fix it. Don't know what to tell you.
yeah, Don makes his own rules.
Yeah, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
Donnie wasn't feeling it, was he? No, wasn't feeling it. I will say there is nothing worse than going out to site to go work on a machine outside and it's not frozen.
Yeah.
I can do cold and frozen. I can't do like cold and wet.
And
That
like
is
6 inches of Cortez mud.
Oh god,
Yeah.
it is the worst.
It literally
ever.
in the service truck, it just comes out the duals in like big noodles. We're
Look
gonna
at
pause.
Look
Yeah,
at
I
this
think let's
hail.
pause for just a minute.